really shocks me about this country is how far the standards of our leaders have really fallen. And not just our leaders, but the people that are trusted to be under them and really keep this country moving. And as much as I used to think of myself as a cynic, I think now it's just become that much more concentrated in the cynicism. We have an issue today where there is a former director of the FBI who multiple times has gone before Congress and basically become a sideshow himself. And that's really something to say when you have Donald Trump as the president and you're able to steal the show for yourself. James Comey, I think, suffers from some sort of syndrome. I'll call it like the Lone Ranger syndrome, where he believes that he's the one guardian of the truth and integrity and all of that. Look, James Comey, with all due respect, has zero accomplishments. You know what? Without any due respect, there is no respect due to him. He has zero accomplishments at the FBI. Now, I don't know if there is supposed to be a benchmark for how we judge FBI directors, because a lot of the things that the Bureau does, we don't even talk about. However, let's think about this. With all of the issues that have cropped up in the past year and a half about Russian spying and how they've managed to get into our system, the greatest Russian spy network that Comey was able to bust was this bizarre group. I think it was in 2011. Here, I'll pull them up. Here, this is Anna Chapman, who was the face of this so-called spy ring. I continue to believe that that story was some sort of fucking, mock-up or whatever. That they claimed that they caught this spy ring of Russians in the New York area in, what was it, 2010, headed by this red-headed bombshell. And what really happened was that they caught her. They claimed that they caught a Russian spy and they deported her. That's not really how you deal with spies, especially, and it wouldn't have been that way in Russia, by the way. And Anna Chapman knows that. And listen, there's an issue here where Americans have their heads up their asses about who these people are that are trying to prove the Russian election shit. Let me put it this way. If Russia succeeded in hacking our election, then James Comey deserves to be raked over the coals completely. First of all, he's a failure as a person. This is somebody who has consistently shown that he's incapable of making the right decision or taking himself out of the argument and keeping himself above the fray. This is somebody who, like I said, Lone Ranger syndrome. There's somebody who believes that he has integrity and is, unimpeachable. He believes in his own head, and therefore, any actions that he does, those are ultimately for the best of good intentions and whatever. It doesn't matter if you're a liberal or conservative. There's types in both camps, okay. And James Comey is one of those people. We have how many intelligence agencies do we have in the United States, and they didn't manage to do anything to prevent the hacking of the election? Do you really believe that? There's intelligence agencies that we don't even know about. What did they say? There were 17 of them that claimed that Russia hacked the election. How many of them do you know about? The viewer. I think that there's a lot that we don't know about what our government is doing, and I made a video a while back about, or I think I just might have written an article, and I'll post it, about how the United States rigged literally every election in Italy for the entire Cold War. And we're supposed to now claim without any basis of evidence that Russia rigged an election when all of the state governments that were involved have validated, and they were not Republican-run governments. In fact, Pennsylvania, for example, is run by a Democrat. They validated the election results. They've said, there is no incident, there is no evidence of hacking, there is no evidence of collusion in their results. So what exactly is this about? Yesterday, I came out of this. I should have taken a day off of work, and honestly, I'd watched most of this hearing. I couldn't watch all of it because these idiots just repeat themselves because they don't like the answers that they're getting. And that's the real lesson that you have to learn, that this will go on and on and on until at some point they realize that they can't squeeze blood out of a turnip. And they're going to be suffering from it. These Democratic politicians and the media that's supporting the establishment of both parties. This is a disgrace, what's going on. And James Comey he's the pinnacle of that disgrace. He's like the head of the pyramid in that regard. Maybe he's not at the top of the pyramid in terms of command, but he's at the top of the pyramid in terms of the rot in our government. So I'm going to try to go through a few clips that exhibit just how dishonest this buffoon is. This was a part where he was interviewed by, questioned by the senator from Maine, Susan Collins, who is a very annoying woman, and she should be kind of eased out of office because the time's come. But listen to the answer for this question.
Did you show copies of your memos to anyone outside of the Department of Justice?
Yes.
And to whom did you show copies?
I asked, President tweeted on Friday after I got fired that I better hope there's not tapes. I woke up in the middle of the night on Monday night, because it didn't dawn on me originally, that there might be corroboration for our conversation. There might be a tape. And my judgment was I needed to get that out into the public square. And so I asked a friend of mine to share the content of the memo with a reporter. Didn't do it myself for a variety of reasons, but I asked him to because I thought that might prompt the appointment of a special counsel. And so I asked a close friend of mine to do it.
So basically, Comey is dancing around the truth here because they're asking him, why and when did you give the memo to the person that you did, who's now been revealed to be, I think, this guy Dan Richmond or something from Columbia University. And he concocts this ridiculous story where he wakes up in the middle of the night and he's like, there's a way to, because Trump taped the conversation. Maybe there's a way to corroborate it. Look, if you were so paranoid about Donald Trump taping the conversation, then, maybe you should have reported the conversation at the time to somebody else. You could have reported it, for example, to somebody from, the rest of the bureau. You could have reported it to some of the agents involved in the case. You could have reported it to Congress when they asked you in March, by the way. You could have done that. Maybe we'll see a clip of that soon. You could have done all these things. Instead, you're like, I just remembered I had this memo.
And was that Mr. Wittes?
No, no.
Who was that?
A good friend of mine who's a professor at Columbia Law School.
So before we start the next clip, let's put this into perspective. This is the head of the FBI. He's been told something that is, troubling to him. He wakes up in the middle of the night. He decides that he's going to take a memo, a handwritten memo that he wrote months before, and give it to a friend of his and tell him to leak it to the press. Okay, you know what? Let's pause here for a second We're going to get to the Cornyn testimony at the left soon. Okay, this is from May 3rd, New York Post, and they're reporting on the issue of Rudy Giuliani getting apparently leaked information from the FBI. And this is James Comey's response.
Let me ask you this. During your investigation into Hillary Clinton's emails, a number of surrogates like Rudy Giuliani claimed to have a pipeline to the FBI. He boasted that, and I quote, numerous agents talked to him all the time, close quote, regarding the investigation. He even said that he had insinuated he had advance warning about the emails described in your October letter. Former FBI agent Jim Counsel made similar claims. Now, either they're lying or there's a serious problem within the Bureau. Did anybody in the FBI during the 2016 campaign have contact with Rudy Giuliani about the Clinton investigation?
I don't know yet. But if I find out that people were leaking information about our investigations, whether to reporters or to private parties, there'll be severe consequences.
Did you know of anything from Jim Counsel?
Same answer. I don't know yet.
You know anything about from other former agents?
I don't know yet. But it's a matter that I'm very, very interested in.
But you are looking into it?
Correct.
And once you have found that answer, will you provide it to us?
I'll provide it to the committee in some form. I don't know whether I would say it publicly, but I'd find some way to let you know.
Anyway, Jim Comey talking about people leaking information about the Clinton investigation to the FBI. In this case, he leaks a memo. He himself is leaking a memo to the press, and you know, he wants to talk about severe consequences in the other matter. I don't think that Jim Comey really realizes that the same standards that apply to his own underlings apply to him too. So here we're going to listen to John Cornyn's questioning of him.
Questions and cooperate with our investigation.
This is from yesterday. The previous clip was from May 3rd.
As a general matter, if an FBI agent has reason to believe that a crime has been committed, do they have a duty to report it?
That's a good question. I don't know that there's a legal duty to report it. They certainly have a...
Notice his ridiculous pause there, as if Comey wasn't reading all of the press accounts and speculation that he might have actually violated this law. It's not like this comes up for the first time, like this John Cornyn from Texas. Actually, you know, he just pulled it out of his ass. Oh, isn't it your duty to report a crime when it's being committed? I mean, aren't you a law enforcement officer? Oh, I didn't think of that question. You know, I don't know if it's a legal obligation. You know, maybe it's more like a guideline or like a rule of thumb, or maybe I don't know, like a social convention. This is the type of response that we've come to be used to from this court jester.
Cultural, ethical duty to report
it? You're unsure whether they would have a legal duty?
Yeah, it's a good question. I've not thought about it before. I don't know where the legal... There's a statute.
I don't know. I never thought about it before. You're the fucking head of the most important investigative force in the Justice Department. Mr. Lone fucking Ranger James Comey. And you don't know if it's if it's a duty to report a crime that's being committed. This is why, you know, all these people that are claiming, oh, you know, our society is breaking down and there's no more ethical standards. Well, your ethical standards are actually sitting right before you, that's testifying before Congress. They're James Comey. And the man is just a complete basket case when it comes to, yeah, you're the head of the fucking FBI. You should be able to answer that question.
That prohibits misprision of a felony, knowing of a felony, and taking steps to conceal it. But this is a different question. And so look, let me be clear. I would expect any FBI agent who has information about a crime being committed to report it.
Me too.
But where you rest that obligation, I don't know. It exists.
And let me ask you as a general proposition, if you're trying to make an investigation go away. Is firing an FBI director a good way to make that happen? By that, I mean...
Yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but I'm obviously hopelessly biased, given that I was the one.
So, that's a funny question. He kind of catches Comey there. When you fire the head of the FBI, that doesn't mean the investigation is over. It's almost like if you shoot an IT tech. Okay, if you shoot an IT guy, does your order ticket disappear? No. This is like ridiculous. The press got into this whole thing. Oh, Trump fired Comey. The FBI can't investigate. He's one guy, and the FBI has sucked under him. And if anything, it might even be more possible that they would do a better job without him.
Fired.
I understand it's personal.
No, given the nature of the FBI, I meant what I said. There's no indispensable people in the world, including at the FBI, that there's lots of bad things about me not being at the FBI. Most of them are for me, but the work's going to go on as before.
So nothing that's happened that you've testified to here today has impeded the investigation of the FBI or Director Mueller's commitment to get to the bottom of this from the standpoint of the FBI and the Department of Justice. Would you agree with that?
Correct. Especially the appointment of former Director Mueller is a critical part of that equation.
So again, he noticed that he said, "Oh, Bob Mueller, this is a critical part of the investigation." Well, James Comey admitted in one of the previous clips that he wanted a special prosecutor appointed because of this one conversation, which was one line. It's Donald Trump saying, "I hope you can see to letting him go." Now, the liberals are trying to make it out that it's a veiled threat against him. Remember, he's the fucking head of the FBI. Okay, so if the head of the FBI really thought he was being threatened and he didn't take any real action with regards to it, it's a sorry commentary on how the FBI is a powerless organization, that the man is basically a pussy. Its reputation has been ruined anyway. So if he really had been threatened, I believe that he would have done something entirely different. James Comey probably would have convened a press conference, and which is, it's par for the course for him, and declared that he has been told to torpedo the investigation and that he has to reveal it publicly, which, it's not as if that's an unreasonable idea. I mean, given the circumstances, maybe that's the only option that would be available. But he didn't do it. He wrote a memo, and later in the testimony, he claimed that he was intimidated by Trump. Here he is talking to Senator Warner about the actual dinner itself and whether it's obstruction of justice, what Donald Trump said.
I don't think it's for me to say whether the conversation I had with the president was an effort to obstruct. I took it as a very disturbing thing, very concerning, but that's a conclusion I'm sure the special counsel will work towards to try and understand what the intention was there and whether that's an offense.
Let me move to the January 27th dinner.
So James Comey starts basically on the same bullcrap that he's been doing since he became a Hollywood celebrity. He's like with Hillary Clinton, he bases his entire decision not to recommend for prosecution in front of the media on intent due to, get this, a mountain of evidence that showed that she was trying to obstruct justice and erase records and delete emails and shit like that, and BleachBit, don't forget that, and destroying hard drives. But there's no intent. How can you establish intent from that? But here he's saying, there might be, there could be intent here. So let's take a listen.
You said, quote, "The president began by asking me whether I wanted to stay on as FBI director."
My common sense told me that what was going on is either he had concluded or someone had told him that you've already asked Comey to stay and you didn't get anything for it. And that the dinner was an effort to build a relationship. In fact, he asked
So based on a mountain of fucking evidence last year, you're saying, how do I know that Hillary Clinton wanted to conceal all of her emails and not let us know about all her shit where she's basically taking money from the Chinese and the Saudis and everybody else in order and mixing up business between the State Department and her foundation and whatever. He suddenly declares, I don't see intent here. But in this case, he's basically prognosticating. I have the conspiracy hands again. If you like the 6 Day War episode, the conspiracy hands are back. This guy is a total clown trying to read intent based on the one hand, trying to say, there was no intent, even though there's a mountain of factual evidence and all of these immunity agreements to establish intent. And on the other hand, based on his idea that somebody that he does not know, events that he does not know has happened, somebody whispered to Trump, "Hey, you didn't get any shit out of him. You didn't get any loyalty out of him. You need to squeeze something out of him. You let him keep his job. You need to get something out of him in return." How's he supposed to know that? How's he supposed to know that?
Specifically, loyalty in the context of asking me to stay. And as I said, what was odd about that is we'd already talked twice about it by that point, and he'd said, "I very much hope you'll stay. I hope you'll stay." In fact, I just remembered sitting here, a third one, when you've seen the picture of me walking across the blue room, and what the president whispered in my ear was, "I really look forward to working with you." So after those encounters...
And that was just a few days before your
Yeah, that was on the Sunday after the inauguration. The next Friday, I have dinner, and the president begins by wanting to talk about my job. And so I'm sitting there thinking, wait a minute, 3 times you've already asked me to stay or talked about me staying. My common sense, again, I could be wrong, but my common sense told me what's going on here is...
Yes, Hillary Clinton lied about having more than one device, and she ended up having 15 that she lost. And she lied about that too, but, there's no intent there. But here, maybe there's some intent. He's trying to get me to do something. Look, I don't care what the fuck Donald Trump was trying to do. James Comey is the wrong person to talk about it based on intent. You better have fucking more credible things to cite in your quest to live up to your Lone Ranger reputation than it seemed like there was an intent to tamper or whatever. Look, I don't buy this bullshit.
He's looking to get something in exchange for granting my request to stay in the job.
February 14th, again, it seems a bit strange. You were in a meeting, and your direct superior, the Attorney General, was in that meeting as well. Yet the president asked everyone to leave, including the Attorney General to leave, before he brought up the matter of General Flynn.
My impression was something big is about to happen. I need to remember every single word that is spoken. And again, I could be wrong. I'm 56 years old. I've been seen a few things. My sense was the Attorney General knew he shouldn't be leaving, which is why he was lingering. And I don't know Mr. Kushner well, but I think he picked up on the same thing. And so I knew something was about to happen that I needed to pay very close attention to.
If you affirmatively made the decision to write a memo that was unclassified, was that because you felt at some point?
This is the kicker here. This is establishing that this guy is a fucking jackal, and that he knows that this is his shot. This is his shot to fuck Donald Trump over, and he's figured out exactly how he can do that, or so he thinks.
The facts of that meeting would have to come clean.
I remember thinking this is a very disturbing development, really important to our work. I need to document it and preserve it in a way, and this committee gets this, but sometimes when things are classified, it tangles them up. It's hard
Amen.
to share it within an investigative team.
But if you unmask the information and share it with everybody and sort of let the genie out of the bottle, that just facilitates everything, right, Comey? I mean, think about it. He's talking about, oh, I needed this to be exposed, so I made it unclassified. Whereas everything else that I'm fucking talking about, and there's actually information about, where they're asking him in a different testimony, not the one even this time. They're asking him, there's allegations based on emails leaked by Russia that Loretta Lynch tried to scuttle the testimony, scuttle the Clinton email investigation. And he's like, oh, I'm going to talk about that in a closed setting. Well, don't you think that would have been something that you should have figured out how to weasel out of back then too?
You have to be very careful about how you handle it for good reason. So my thinking was, if I write it in such a way that I don't include anything that would trigger a classification, that'll make it easier for us to discuss within the FBI and the government, and to hold on to it in a way that makes it accessible to us.
That weasel tactic, okay, I'll go over it one more time. James Comey, who in every other question that has to do with Hillary Clinton and her wrongdoing says, you know what, we'll have to go to closed committee. We'll have to go to this closed committee and not discuss that here. In this case, he says, you know what, I was thinking ahead there. I figured out a way that I could make this unclassified, and I could actually document this and leak it. And first he starts saying, circulate it within the FBI and whatever. But if you really think about it, that's not what he's talking about. He's saying, I'm going to nail him. And this is something that he thinks that legally he can leak to the press, and he like I said, or like was shown in the other video, he figured, oh, I can give it through my friend, and that way I won't get into trouble. So we're gonna go through one more segment. This clip is getting long, but the Marco Rubio segment is also pretty important. And notice how basically he shows Comey to be kind of a joke. And he asked probably a question that's worth just as much as everything that we've already heard or what I've brought up, that it really makes you think, this guy, what the fuck is he doing? How did he become head of the FBI, this, Detective Riggs and Murtaugh idiot?
The meeting in the Oval Office where he made the request about Mike Flynn, was that the only time he asked you to hopefully let it go?
Yes.
And in that meeting, as you understood it, he was asking not about the general Russia investigation. He was asking very specifically about the jeopardy that Flynn was in himself.
That's how I understood it, yes, sir.
And as you perceived it, while it was a request that he hoped you did away with it, you perceived it as an order, given his position, the setting, and the like, and some of the circumstances.
Yes.
At the time, did you say anything to the president about that is not an appropriate request, or did you tell the White House counsel that is not an appropriate request? Someone needs to go tell the president that he can't do these things?
I didn't, no.
Okay. Why?
So that's a very funny question if you think about it. The White House has a lawyer that you can go to and say, look, the president's out of line. He should really not fucking come at me and say, you got to look after my guy. You got to look after Rocco. Rocco can't go to prison. He can rat us all out. That's what Comey was trying to imply, that's what Donald Trump was doing. But Rubio clearly shows that, first of all, Comey can't prove that he was talking about the whole investigation. He was only talking about Michael Flynn. Second of all, what Comey did was a huge it's basically showing that this is somebody who was going out of his way to do everything so that it could be done in the least, in the dirtiest way possible, okay? In the dirtiest way possible that he gets out clean. And if he would have gone to the White House counsel, he would have also been able to have a meeting with him and document the meeting. And that's why you have a lawyer as the head of the FBI and the lawyer as the White House counsel. They speak the same language. Instead, you have a lawyer writing down a handwritten memo from a person that he's having dinner with that he thinks that he can leak to the press or circulate around the FBI, and in reality, it's just this is the worst way to go about it if you really think about it. It's a way that you end up showing that you don't trust a system that you yourself are always shilling for, which is basically what James Comey does. All he does is talk about how the FBI is a sacred institution and that he has to be independent and blah, blah, blah. Look, if you were really independent, then you would have gone over to the White House Counsel, as Rubio says, and said, what Trump is doing is out of line, and you know it, and you're the White House Counsel, so you rein him in, or I will rein him in for you.
I don't know. I think as I said earlier, I think the circumstances were such that I was a bit stunned and didn't have the presence of mind. And I don't know, I don't want to make you sound like I'm Captain Courageous. I don't know whether even if I had the presence of mind, I would have said to the president, "Sir, that's wrong." I don't know whether I would have. But in the moment, it didn't come to my mind. What came to my mind is, be careful what you say. And so I said, I agree, Flynn is a good guy.
So on the cloud, we keep talking about this cloud. You perceive the cloud to be the Russian investigation in general.
Yes, sir.
But his specific ask was that you would tell the American people what you had already told him, what you had already told the leaders of Congress, both Democrats and Republicans, that he was not personally under investigation.
Yes, sir.
In fact, he was asking you to do what you have done here today.
Correct. Yes, sir.
Okay. And again, at that setting, did you say to the president that it would be inappropriate for you to do so, and then talk to the White House counsel or anybody, so hopefully they would talk to him and tell him that he couldn't do this?
First time I said, I'll see what we can do. Second time, I explained how it should work, that the White House counsel should contact the Deputy Attorney General.
You told him
the president said, okay, I think that's what I'll do.
And just to be clear, for you to make a...
So he doesn't take any action. He doesn't go and talk to the White House counsel himself. He doesn't. He basically gives a couple instructions to Trump about it, and instead of basically doing the right thing, he keeps this memo filed away as if he was so smart and he caught Trump in some sort of Gordian knot here. No. I think that we're seeing that this is a guy who's basically allowed his entire story to fall apart, because you could see earlier he asked him, well, why didn't you tell the White House counsel? And he's like, oh, I don't know. I guess I don't really know my state of mind at the time.
A public statement that he was not under investigation would not have been illegal, but you felt it made no sense because it could potentially create a duty to correct if circumstances changed.
Yes, sir. We wrestled with it before my testimony, where I confirmed that there was an investigation, and there were two primary concerns. One was it creates a duty to correct, which I've lived before, and you want to be very careful about doing that. And second, it's a slippery slope, because if we say the president and the vice president aren't under investigation, what's the principled basis for stopping? And so the leadership at Justice, Acting Attorney General Bente, said you're not going to do that.
Now, on March 30th, during the phone call about General Flynn, you said he abruptly shifted and brought up something that you call, quote unquote, the McCabe thing. Specifically, the McCabe thing, as you understood it, was that McCabe's wife had received campaign money from what I assume means Terry McAuliffe.
Yes, sir. That's
was very close to the Clintons. And so why had the president at any point in time expressed to you concern, opposition, potential opposition to McCabe? I don't like this guy because he got money from someone that's close to Clinton.
He had asked me during previous conversations about Andy McCabe and said, in essence, how's he going to be with me as president? I was pretty rough on him on the campaign trail.
He was rough on McCabe?
He was rough, by his own account. He said he was rough on McCabe and Mrs. McCabe on the campaign trail. How's he going to be? And I assured the president, Andy is a total pro. No issue at all. You got to know the people of the FBI. They are.
So then the president turns to you and says, remember, I never brought up the McCabe thing because you said he was a good guy. Did you perceive that to be a statement that I took care of you? I didn't do something because you told me he was a good guy. So now, I'm asking you potentially for something in return. Is that how you perceived it?
I wasn't sure what to make of it, honestly. That's possible, but it was so out of context that I didn't have a clear view of what it was.
Now, on a number of occasions here,
So here James Comey is basically, suddenly he loses his superpower of being able to read people's intent.
Let's talk now about the general Russia investigation, okay? In page 6 of your testimony, you say, the first thing you say is, he asked what we could do to quote unquote lift the cloud, the general Russia investigation, and you responded that we were investigating the matter as quickly as we could and that there would be great benefit if we didn't find anything to having done the work well. And he agreed. He re-emphasized the problems it was causing him, but he agreed. So in essence, the president agreed with your statement that it would be great if we could have an investigation, all the facts came out, and we found nothing. So he agreed that that would be ideal, but this cloud is still messing up my ability to do the rest of my agenda. Is that an accurate assessment of?
Yes, sir. He actually went farther than that. He said, and if some of my satellites did something wrong, it'd be good to find that out.
Well, that's the second part, and that is the satellites. He said if one of my satellites, I imagine by that he meant some of the other people surrounding his campaign did something wrong, it would be great to know that as well.
Yes, sir. That's what he said.
So are those the only two instances in which that sort of back and forth happened, where the president was basically saying, and I'm paraphrasing here, it's okay, do the Russia investigation. I hope it all comes out. I have nothing to do with anything Russia. It'd be great if it all came out, if people around me were doing things that were wrong.
Yes, as I recorded it accurately there, that was the sentiment he was expressing. Yes, sir.
So what it basically comes down to is the president has asked three things of you. He asked for your loyalty, and you said you would be loyally honest.
Honestly loyal.
Honestly loyal. He asked you on one occasion to let the Mike Flynn thing go because he was a good guy. By the way, you're aware that he said the exact same thing in the press the next day. He's a good guy, he's been treated unfairly, et cetera, et cetera. So I imagine your FBI agents read that.
I'm sure they did.
The president's wishes were known to them, certainly by the next day when he had a press conference with the prime minister. Going back, the three requests.
So Rubio is basically revealing that this whole thing is a concocted nothing, because Trump had already, and we all know that publicly he's been saying that General Flynn is a good guy and whatever, which he might be a good guy, but he ain't no smart guy. Anyway, James Comey's entire premonition that this is some in some way a crime and that Trump is interfering in whatever, it's all falling apart. Because Trump is asking him to figure out if any of the people in his sphere of influence, in his what's it called, in his cadre, in his circle of friends, is a Russian agent.
Requests were, number one, be loyal. Number two, let the Mike Flynn thing go. He's a good guy. He's been treated unfairly. And number three, can you please tell the American people what these leaders in Congress already know, what you already know, what you've told me 3 times, that I'm not personally under investigation?
Those are the 3 things he asked. Yes, sir.
You know, this investigation is full of leaks left and right. I mean, we've learned more from the newspapers sometimes than we do from our open hearings, for sure. Do you ever wonder why, of all the things in this investigation, the only thing that's never been leaked is the fact that the president was not personally under investigation, despite the fact that both Democrats and Republicans and the leadership of Congress knew that and have known that for weeks?
I don't know.
So think about how stupid that is. They're saying the whole time, oh, they're getting closer. They're closing in. The FBI is about to blow the fucking doors off of him, and these leaks are helping and whatever. And at the end of the day, the actual investigation, and he's saying, Rubio is saying in the Senate record, and nobody came and disputed what he said. He's saying that President Trump has never been under investigation for this. You know, maybe he's been under investigation in the past for whatever. And this whole thing is a bunch of bullshit. How are you supposed to bring somebody down for an investigation that's not even about him? And I think with everything that's been going on here, it's going to be impossible for them to do anything to Michael Flynn now, too, because the whole case will be basically exposed in the press, and nobody's going to trust anybody, and James Comey is to blame. James Comey, this twat that has allowed himself through his delusions of grandeur. Okay, everybody talks about how Trump's ego is huge. Trump's ego may be huge, but Jim Comey's delusions of grandeur are huge. This, I mean, they're both, in terms of stature, they're pretty big guys. I think they're both like way over 6 feet tall, and but you get what I'm saying here. That Jim Comey has basically sunk his own battleship. He torpedoed himself. This guy is an idiot, and those of you that are clinging to the notion that he's going to bust Trump, or not him, but they're going to bust Trump now. There's nothing that they can do now. It's basically it's been revealed by Congress that Jim Comey had told Trump that he's not under investigation, and that Congress knew as well, and that all these Democrats that are going in front of the media and saying we're going to impeach, and he's a Russian agent and whatever, and there's collusion and whatever. They now know. Everybody knows now. It's in the record officially, because Marco Rubio said it, and he's saying that Jim Comey has told them before in closed session that Donald Trump is not under investigation, and that effectively this whole thing is a giant wild goose chase for nothing. And that's it for today. This is Ramon, bold like a leopard. Jim Comey is a retard. You can comment below and tell me why I'm wrong, or you know, maybe you have a different take on the Jim Comey clusterfuck that we saw yesterday. Also, let me know if there was anything I left out in terms of something that Comey did say that you thought was interesting. You can find my contact information below. Like, subscribe, and remember, you want the torpedo with the business side out. Okay?